In a moment, you're going to see a live training that I did with our one-on-one clients that are working with hypnotists on my team, as well as our certification clients. And the topic of discussion is how to actually program your subconscious mind so you actually achieve your goals and your New Year's resolutions going into 2026. Now, the information I'm going to share with you, I have literally invested hundreds of thousands of dollars to learn, and people pay me thousands and thousands of dollars to learn it from me. So this is going to be one of those things where you're going to want to take notes, you're going to want to revisit this, and I promise you, if you just implement the step-by-step processes you're going to learn in this video, your goals, your dreams, your New Year's resolutions will actually come true. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go on and say, this is the only video that you need to listen to when it comes to setting your intentions, your goals, and your New Year's resolutions going into 2026. So make sure to pay attention, follow along. If you can't sit here and take notes, listen to it in the background, and then come back later and take notes and do the step-by-step processes. And I promise you, you'll look back on this video a year from today and go, oh my God, the things that I set my intention and my goals on actually came true. So let's dive into the video. What I wanted to cover with you today is some of the tools and tricks and tips that I personally use and continue to use to really help those goals and things come true. And so, when again, 7 years ago, I had my car repossessed, my credit cards all maxed out, and I really thought there was just no light at the end of the tunnel for me, and I had tried all kinds of different personal development. It wasn't for lack of effort, that's for sure. It was that my mind had all these blocks and these barriers that I just wasn't aware of. And yeah, you can listen to back then, I would listen to like CDs and personal development and Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins, all these things. And I'd read books and everything, and it would help. However, I didn't realize how much the subconscious mind really either sabotages us or helps us to create our goals, right? So your subconscious mind can be your worst enemy or it could be your best friend. We have to learn how to communicate with it in a way that it's going to work in your favor. So one of the biggest things I see with people when creating their goals is they create these absolutely unrealistic, egotistical goals that they truly don't believe subconsciously that they're going to hit. And then they end up getting disappointed when those things don't happen at the timeline that they happen. Now, I'm all about big thinking. I'm all about dreaming big and big targets for sure. There's a process though. There's a balance to how much goes into big thinking and how much goes into the actual achievable steps. So there's typically two parties in this camp is like, oh, dream big, don't think small. And then there's the other camp that's like, no, think realistic, be realistic. Don't dream big. I think they're both wrong. I think the actual correct answer is to do both, right? So thinking big and then taking things down and putting them in bite-sized chunks. Now, what do I mean by an egotistical goal, right? So, you'll get somebody who, let's say they make 100 grand a year and they're like, this year, I'm going to make $1 million. And is that possible? Of course it's possible, right? Is it likely that person's going to 10x their income in 365 days? Probably not. So what ends up happening is they create these egotistical goals because they think of, and it's funny because humans, I don't know what it is, but we like to use these round numbers, right? I want to make 10 grand a month. I want to make 20 grand a month. I want to make $1 million a year. You never hear somebody say, I want to make $923,000 a year, right? So it's always a weird thing where we round up. And what I have discovered, and I've actually discovered this working with athletes as well, working with like NFL receivers. They'll go, okay, I want to get 1,000 yards in receiving this year. It's like, why 1,000? We have this weird round number thing. And what I have discovered working with people on their income and like I said, athletes and things like this, is often those round numbers are where we actually have the least amount of belief, meaning we're not actually truly thinking everything through and getting the real number that we subconsciously believe to a certain degree and going with that. Right? Really, the person might believe 800, but because of this round number, they go to 1,000, but they really don't believe 1,000. Their ego wants to believe that they can do it. And then they get disappointed. Now, I'll share with you a very fascinating thing. I actually read it last night in a book. It was so good. This gentleman hit it on the head. So there was this admiral. Okay. I believe his name's Jim. Let me look it up. Give me 1 second so that you guys can, if you want to look it up on your own time, you can look it up. This is perfect to exactly the point I'm making here. So there's this admiral. Where is it at here? Here we go. Okay, Admiral. Did I write it down? Oh, no, I didn't. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Admiral Jim Stockdale. Okay. So there's something called the Stockdale paradox. So this gentleman was an admiral during the Vietnam War, and he got captured as a POW, prisoner of war. And he was a prisoner of war from 1965 to 1973. So 8 years. And throughout these 8 years, he had been tortured like viciously more than 20 different times. He was obviously starved to death, beaten, the whole gamut, right? What POWs go through. So obviously the guy made it out alive. And after he made it out alive, he was interviewed and he was asked, who were the people that didn't make it out when they were in the POW camp? Now, who would type in the chat, if you guys could give me a guess of the type of person that did not make it out of the POW camps, I'd love to hear what you think. People who didn't believe, okay? What else? Those who gave up hope, didn't think they could, negative, believe. Higher ego, gave up, lack mindset, people in fear. Okay. So I was thinking a similar answer as I was reading this, and it's actually the exact opposite. So here's what he said. He said, the optimists are the people that did not make it out alive. Now, that's a weird thing to hear, right? The optimists, they're the ones who didn't make it out. What the hell? I thought they'd be the ones, right? Positive mindset and all these things. Here's what he said, though. He said the optimists, when they were captured, they would have this optimistic mindset of, hey, I'm going to get out by Christmas. By Christmas, we're going to get out. We're going to, whatever, the war is going to end, whatever the reason was. And then Christmas would roll around. Nothing would happen. They say, okay, it didn't happen during Christmas. So Easter. Yeah. Easter, that's when we're going to get out. We're going to get out by Easter. And then Easter would roll around, nothing. Okay, 4th of July, that's where we're going to make it out. 4th of July is time. And then this would happen for years. And what he said is that those people, exactly, Naima said it, they end up dying of heartbreak because they were constantly disappointed by these targets that they didn't have any control over, right? So that doesn't mean that we don't want to be optimistic and have a positive mindset and all that. What it means is we have to understand and be willing to confront the brutal reality of where we're currently at, the resources that we have, and where we can actually go with the skill sets that we have. Again, a guy going, I'm making 100,000 a year. I'm going to go to 1 million next year. I don't know, man, because you got to make almost 100,000 the first month out the gate. Now, can you go? And yeah, for sure. 100%. Now, here's what I found. When we can take those bigger visions and we can break them down and make it digestible, make it believable subconsciously, then what happens is we start to develop belief and we start to actually get excited that what we're going to embark upon can actually come true and will actually come true. So we do this, and some of you may have heard me talk about this before. And for those of you who come to the event, we do a segment on this. We go a little bit deeper than we will today. We do this by putting our goals for 2026 within what's called our sweet spot. Okay. So our sweet spot is on a scale of 1 to 10, you believe at an 8 or a 9, okay, out of 10, that you will achieve that goal. Not that you can, but that you actually will. Okay. Now, why is this important? Well, first of all, if we are shooting for a goal that's 10 out of 10. Now, by the way, I know I've talked about money and stuff like that. And obviously all of you guys signed up for the money magnetism. So I'm assuming that you are partly here because you want to increase your income, right? These principles go across anything. It goes relationships, how, so whatever formula you want to plug in, feel free to plug it in. Okay. So first of all, the reason we don't set something that's out of 10 is because if something is a 10, okay. Now, first of all, before I share that with you, what is a 10 first and foremost? Okay. A 10 is you absolutely 100% know that you will achieve your goal. So a 10 out of 10, what does that feel like? What does that sound like internally when we're talking to ourselves, that little voice in our head, or the feelings that we get? So it sounds like this. I want you to ask yourself, okay, is your name your name? So say, is my name Joe? Is my name Amanda? Is my name Aida? Is my name John? Is my name, and the feeling that you get and the knowingness, like, yes, I know that 100%, there's no question about that. That is what a 10 out of 10. If you want to go from where you're at to where you want to be in a fraction of the time, the fastest way to get there is by programming your subconscious mind using the power of hypnosis. With this being said, my team and I are providing a free one-on-one subconscious success test session with one of my certified hypnotists. We're going to do a deep dive into your subconscious mind to figure out what things may be holding you back from creating the success and how to actually wire your mindset so you can crush your goals in your dreams. Now, here's the thing. We typically charge $500 per session, and we're going to be doing the subconscious success test session with you for free. So if you want to see if you qualify, there's a link down in the description. Go out and fill out your information and book your subconscious success session now. Now, we are limited and we actually may not be doing this forever. So you might actually go down in the description and not find the link there. If so, then we've taken it down. So go there now, see if it's still available, and we'll see you guys crush your goals going into 2026 and beyond. 10 is, okay? Just so you know. Now, the reason why we don't do 10 out of 10 is because, again, if it's 10 out of 10, it's too easy. And when things are too easy, we get bored, and that boredom leads to us not being excited about it and not actually pushing outside of our comfort zone. And we actually will lose interest, okay? So if you ask me, Dom, what's your belief that you will do, $100,000, next year? Like that doesn't even compute in my brain, right? It's like, that's obviously a 10 out of 10. I mean, that's just not even in my world, right? So I've got to create something that's more than what I'm doing now, that's outside of my comfort zone, where I believe, again, that 8 or 9 out of 10, that target, that I'm going to actually hit it. Not that I can, okay? There's a difference between you can and you will, right? Not that I can, but that I actually will be able to hit it. Now, the reason why we put it at an 8 or 9 and not a 7, a 6, a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 is because when we start to create too much too soon for where we're currently at, that leads to stress and anxiety. And when we're in stress and anxiety, that's how things break. Okay. That's how we actually self-sabotage, and that's how we actually push things away. So this is where the ego comes into play. And the person will just, no, I'm going to make the $1 million, but I've only made 100 grand. I've never made more than 100 grand. I'm 45 years old. I've never made more than 100 grand. I've been working for 20 years, 25 years. And I've never, but this year is going to be the year I do. No. Let's tone it down a little bit, right? Let's not let the ego, because you've probably been saying that for 10 years. I'm going to be a millionaire this year. I'm going to be a millionaire. Okay. So let's create something that is outside of the 100K that you make. That's there, that makes you be like, okay, it's not the 100K, because 100K is too easy. It's a 10 out of 10. But maybe it's a 120, maybe it's 130, 140, 150, whatever that number is for you, okay? Now, here's the interesting thing that happens. And this is the kind of the paradox of this whole process, is when you put things in your sweet spot. Okay, so remember, when things are too easy, we get bored and we lose interest. So this is why if the NFL, whatever, the best team in the NFL is playing a high school football team, nobody would watch it, right? Because we know 10 out of 10, the NFL team is going to crush the team. So what football games do we love? It's the games where it's neck and neck, right? It's like, ooh, it's close, it's back and forth, because that's what actually gets us excited, right? It's when you're not 100% sure. And you see it in sports a lot, right? Where a team is down and it looks like they're going to lose, and there's only so much time left, and they dig deep and they find something within themselves that wasn't there the previous 3 quarters, and somehow, some way, they pull a rabbit out of the hat, and they actually get a win, right? So it's that feeling of like, you know what? If I really dug deep, I can stretch myself and see what I'm really capable of. Those are the moments we're looking for. Not when you're down by 50 points and it's the 4th quarter. You know what I mean? And like, oh yeah, we're going to win. No, you're not. Right. So again, creating that within the sweet spot. Now, here's the beautiful thing that will happen. Okay. When you start putting things in your sweet spot and you start getting into alignment and you're in flow, an interesting thing starts happening. The synchronicities, the serendipities, the opportunity, the person that you're going to meet, whatever, the clients, etc., they start somehow just kind of finding their way into your life. And then all of a sudden, you start creating momentum. And as you start to create momentum, what also happens is time goes by. And as that time goes by, you start developing more belief in what you're going to be able to achieve. So what do I mean by that? So let's say on January 1st, you say, you know what? My goal is to make let's say you make $8,000 a month. Okay. And you say, my goal, I make $96,000 a year. I want to shoot for 115 or 120 or whatever that number is. Okay. Well, let's say January 1st happens and you're in alignment. You're not doing this ego thing where, okay, I got to go from 8 grand to 100 grand in 1 month. Right. And you're in alignment. You feel good about it. And then all of a sudden you go out in the first month of January and you make 10 grand. You might go, oh, wow, that was actually pretty easy. Okay, good. Let me do it again. And then you go out the next month and in February you make 11,000 or 12,000. You go, oh my God, man, I just made 22,000 in 2 months. Okay, there's 6 months out of the year. Okay, that's 120. That's, man, if I just stay on this track, that's 132,000. Okay, let's see what I can do. Let's see if I can, hit this number again. And then the third month you make another 12,000. You're like, okay, I've made what, $34,000 in 3 months. Let's multiply that by 4. That's what, 136,000, something like that. And all of a sudden, 4 months in, you're making 15, 16, 18 grand a month. And what you thought in the beginning of the year, you thought, hey, this 120, that's within my sweet spot. All of a sudden, 2, 3, 4 months in the year, your goal goes to 150. And then as you get to 5, 6 months in the year, all of a sudden that goal goes to 180. And then essentially in a matter of a year, you've almost doubled your income. Okay. Now, to give you a perspective of how many people and companies are out there, businesses and things like this, that are doubling their revenue, doubling their income, is you're talking less, like 0.01%. So if you achieve that goal to be able to double or even 50% increase your income, you're on a great path. Now, let me say something else, because again, 100,000 to 1 million, right? Now, let's say, for example, you had been working on something for 2 years and you've just been building the pieces together, whatever, software company, your business, or whatever the case may be. Okay. But you've only been making 100 grand. However, what you've put into motion and you've built up over the past year or 2 years or 3 years has the potential to really hit those higher numbers. Now we can actually do that, right? Because there's momentum. Maybe your income isn't going up. However, the systems and the processes are being put in place where you're like, hey, if I just basically throw gasoline on what I've built, I can scale this to $1 million in a year, or I can scale this to 2 million, or whatever the case may be. In that case, again, if you have a real process where it's like, I know that this can go to this, and it's the 100 a year to 1 million a year is realistic. It's actually that's possible. Then go ahead and do that. So again, I'm not saying not to do it. You've got to find out for yourself where you're at. Now, again, as you're going through this process, you're in the flow. You go out, you take action, you start getting those wins. Okay. Rather than getting beat down, like the POW that's like, oh, by Christmas, I'm going to get out. By Easter, I'm going to get out. And then they end up dying of a broken heart, which I feel like most people do with their income. I'm going to be a millionaire this year. I'm going to be a millionaire this year. I'm going to be a millionaire this year. And it doesn't happen. Okay. So there's 5 things that we want to make sure, and you guys may have seen this maybe in one of our courses, I don't know, is creating SMART goals. Now, some people will knock on SMART goals. Oh, SMART goals don't work, or they're stupid, or whatever. I disagree, because I use this quite often for myself and for my team, is getting very specific on the targets that we're actually going to hit and get very clear on what it is we're doing. Okay. So if you want to write this down, okay, just write SMART vertically. And for some of you have probably learned this in school or something. So write the acronym SMART, SMART. Okay. So this kind of goes into what we're talking about. We'll get a little bit more specific. So the S stands for specific. Okay. So this means we need to have a specific target, a specific thing that we're working towards. So let's take weight loss, for example. If you just say, I want to lose weight, cool. You lose a pound, you gain a pound, you lose a pound, you gain a pound. Technically, you keep losing weight. You have to get so specific. Hey, I'm going to be 225 pounds by this time frame. I'm going to lose 5 pounds and maintain this weight of XYZ. So you got to get specific. It can't just be, I want to make more money. I want to lose more weight. No, how much money, how much weight, right? So getting very clear on what those specifics are. Number two is the M, which is measurable. So if you say, I just want to be more successful, okay? Again, you can't really measure that. You can't, success is this, idea and this concept that's just floating around and it's our own perspective of what it actually means. Or I want to be happier. I want to feel peaceful. Okay, great. How can we measure that though? What will you be doing? What evidence will you have to have in your life in order for you to know that you're happy, that you're successful, that you're at peace? So we have to have measurables. Okay, so maybe it's hey, in order for me to be successful, I have to make X amount of money. I have to have X amount of vacations per year. I have to be able to spend X amount of time with my family. I have to be able to, do this, do this, do this. And ultimately, I can measure that. And I know that if I do, hey, maybe it's giving back to charity or you're going to do some philanthropy work. It doesn't always have to be about materials, right? It can be whatever you want. There has to be some type of measurement. Hey, I know that I'll be at peace when I'm waking up every day at 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm working out 5 days a week. I'm reading for 5 hours or more every week. And I'm doing these different things, right? That's how I'll know I'm successful. So that's M. A is achievable. Okay. So achievable means that it's actually possible for you. All right. So if you're, even if you're in this group, the chances of you ever becoming an astronaut are probably 0.0001%, right? So let's just get that out of your head. If you're in here and you want to be an NBA basketball player, chances of that are just zeros, probably impossible. Okay, let's just be real. So it's got to be achievable. It's got to be something that you and who you are can actually achieve, right? R stands for what we talked about a minute ago, which is realistic. Now, again, I'm all about taking unrealistic things and making them realistic. That's how all of you guys are here and doing events and all these different things, right? It came from thinking unrealistically. At the same time, I had to take these big visions and break them down in bite-sized chunks that I can actually digest, right? So figuring out what is realistic. So realistic is, again, finding that sweet spot. What is the sweet spot for you? 8 or 9 out of 10. Again, 10 is too easy. If we drop below 8 and our ego gets involved, no, I know it could be an 8. I know it could be an 8. I know it could be an 8. You're going to be disappointed. You're going to die of a broken heart. Okay. So, make it to where it feels good. You're like, I'm not 100%, but if I really dial in and I'm disciplined, I stay focused and I'm consistent, I think this is going to happen. Right. So that's where you want to be. And the last one is time. So T stands for time. So we want to give ourselves time, a timeline of where we're actually going to hit this target. Okay. Now this goes into the keeping it within your sweet spot. Because if you say, hey, what's your belief that you'll make $1 million? Well, that depends. Is it $1 million over 30 years? Is it $1 million over 3 years? Is it $1 million a month? Like, what are we talking about here? Right? So we want to get specific on what our timelines are. Now, this is going to be important for those of you who are business owners and you have employees and you have a team and things like this, because I know I've fallen short here, is keeping your timelines also realistic, right? So one thing that I've done in the past and I've made mistakes about is, I'm a workhorse. Like I just get stuff done. Whatever needs to get done, if I got to get it done, I'll make it happen. And not everybody is that way, right? So what I would often do is I would create these timelines that I know that I could do, but maybe my team, they're just not there yet, at least. And I would put these unrealistic time constraints on my team, and then it would create stress and it would create burnout and all these different things. So it also is true for ourselves. So we want to create timelines that are actually realistic. And we want to be a good judgment of time and not, again, just throw out some number. Oh, I want to make 100 grand in a year. Like, where did you get that from? Where I want to make $1 million a year. Why? Like, how are you coming up with these numbers, right? So come up with a very specific amount, a very specific target, and a very specific time frame. Again, if you're losing weight, I want to lose 5 pounds. Okay. When? Like, what does that mean? We've got to set timelines on the things that we want to achieve. Okay. So again, specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time. And remember, the beautiful thing about this is as you start to progress, as you start to get momentum, you will start to hit targets, and then your confidence increases. Your belief that you're going to achieve, and then when that happens, you extend your goal. Again, for those of you, you may have heard this story. When I went to my first hypnosis course, I had zero desire that I was going to do this for a living. Like I wasn't going into the course thinking I'm going to be a hypnotist. That wasn't my thought. Okay. I went into the course. I fell in love with it. I said, hey, this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life. And I decided this is what I want to do. Now that's all cool. I felt great. I was excited, but guess what? I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Right. I didn't know, like, I knew some enough to like do a little hypnosis, but I don't know how to like get clients, charge people, like systems, processes, merchant account, all the business stuff, licensing, all this. So I'm just like, okay, I have no idea how I'm going to make this my full-time, like my career. I do know that I do want to do it. So let me be realistic with myself and let me set a time frame. Let me get specific, measurable, achievable, realistic in time on when I'll be able to hit this. And let me keep it within my sweet spot. So my vision and my goal was, okay, and there's two additional things that you're going to want to write down because this is really, 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 really important. Okay. I said, hey, by 6 months, here's the first one, or sooner, okay, I want to be able to be doing hypnosis full time, okay? So I'll break that down here a second. And I want to be able just to pay my bills or better or more, right? So in my mind, okay, which my bills were like $2,500 a month at the time, by the way, maybe a little bit more if I did some entertainment. But this was after I lost everything and all my credit cards went, the whole thing. So my smart goal that was within my sweet spot was 6 months or sooner. I want to be able to do this full time. And I don't even need to make the same money I was making doing insurance, because I was actually, I always made six figures. My problem was back then I used to just spend it all, right? So I was like, okay, I don't need to make the same money because now I got my bills down and everything. If I could just pay my bills or better, I'd be happy with that. Now, here's the interesting thing that happened. I go out, I work just fanatically and just hypnotizing anybody and everybody that would listen to me. And one weekend I'd hypnotize like 40, 45 people. And I realized, I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually pretty good at this. And people are wanting to do this with me. Like, I'm surprised. I thought I was going to have a different reaction. So all of a sudden I said, you know what? With the rate I'm going at right now, I think that I can actually take what I think is going to take me 6 months. I think I can do this in 3 months. Matter of fact, there's a little bit less than 3 months because I said by my birthday or sooner, I want to be able to make $2,500 a month or more doing this full time. I don't want to be doing any insurance at all. So I went out again. In the first week, I worked with, it was either right around 100, a little bit more than 100. I don't remember the exact number. It was a lot of people. All of a sudden, I woke up 2 weeks of the day. Rochelle remembers this. There was 10 appointments on my calendar to go sell insurance. And I told her, I said, hey, call everybody on today's list. Tell them I'm not coming in today. I said, I'm never selling another insurance policy ever again in my life. And I quit. And then the rest is history, right? Now, the reason I share all that with you is because if I had told myself, if I let my ego get involved, if I was the person that's like, by Christmas, we're going to be out of the, we're going to break out of the prison camp. By Easter, it's going to happen. If I let my ego get involved, I would have and said, oh, you can do this in 2 weeks. I would not have believed that was possible at that time. I would have been stressed. I would have been anxious, and I would have actually blocked myself from finding the opportunities, the people, the ideas, the strategies that actually made that happen within 2 weeks. So you see, when you actually set it within your sweet spot, you actually get into the flow. And when you're in the flow of life, things start happening for you. That's why all these people just started coming to me. And then what ended up happening was I started getting referrals from the people I was doing free sessions with. I was like, okay, time to start charging, right? So a point is, take something, get it within your sweet spot, work on it, develop the confidence, develop the momentum. And as you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, you start to see, oh, wow, this is actually happening. Then you start to make those adjustments, right? Go from 6 months to 3 months, from 3 months to 2 weeks, and bam. And here we are. Now I teach, now I'm teaching you guys all this stuff, right? So it's interesting. So the two key components that I want to touch on really quick is the or more and or sooner. Okay. because our subconscious mind takes everything very literally. So when we tell ourselves, hey, I want to make 100 grand this year, you're technically limiting yourself in two ways. Number one, you're limiting the amount that you can make, right? Because you're saying 100 grand. All right. And you're also limiting the amount of time that it's going to take. You're restricting yourself to have to wait a year, and you're restricting yourself to that top line of 100,000 or whatever it is. So what I want you guys to do is whatever number you put for weight loss, or let's say it's not like a tangible money thing. Maybe it's, I want to live in a specific home, right? Then it would be, hey, this home or something better, okay, by this time frame or sooner, okay? And remember, the subconscious mind takes everything very literally. So if you're not hyper specific and you don't get clear on what it is, again, you may lose the opportunity for it to happen in 6 months because you're saying, hey, it's going to take me a year to do this, right? You may lose the opportunity for it to do 200,000 or 300 or whatever the number is because you're limiting yourself by saying, I want to make 100 grand this year. No, 100 grand or more by the end of this year or sooner. That's how we do it. And that's how we do it with everything. You always want the possibility of more and for it to happen sooner. Now, I'll share with you a funny story. This is how, so that it sinks in your brain of how important it is to be specific, okay? I had a client who's an NFL player. And when I started working with this years ago, in the beginning of the season, he was like a fourth stringer. He never even really played. He would get in here and there. And so we worked together, and he started to get better. Now, in the beginning of the season, before we started the year, he said, hey, my goal is I want to have the most interceptions and pass deflections on my team. Okay, that was his goal. I want to have the most interceptions. For those of you who don't know what an interception is, it's when the quarterback from the other team or the quarterback throws a football to trying to hit his player, but the other team snags it out of the air, right? Pass deflection is when the other team swats it out of the air. So he wanted to have the most interceptions and pass deflections. So cool. So we do that. We set it. We do the techniques, blah, 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 whatever. Well, then fast forward, we get to the end of the year and we're reviewing everything. And he goes, Dom, the other day, I was looking at our notes from the beginning of the season and like all our goals and our intentions and everything that we set for this year. And I was just looking at everything and he goes, I found there was that we had set that I wanted to have the most interceptions and pass deflections on the team. And he goes, and what's crazy is I actually did have the most interceptions and pass deflections on the team. And I remember thinking, like, it was a split second because he ended up saying the next thing. I remember thinking, like, no, you didn't. I watched every game. Like, he did get some, but he didn't have the most. And he goes, but the funny thing is that I had the most interceptions and pass deflections in practice. Wasn't specific. I didn't say in the game. Now, again, this is just rookie stuff. Who thinks to actually say that, right? Like, oh, most interceptions and pass deflections in the game. So we got to get clear on what it is we're doing. Now, one thing I recommend to add to everything that you're doing, okay, is I always, whenever I do affirmations and things like this and I do goal setting, I always say all these affirmations or this goal, this vision that I'm creating is with the best and highest good for all who are involved, okay? And I like to just use that as a blanket statement. And here's why. What good is making $1 million a year if that requires you to sacrifice and lose your family? That's not cool, right? So you get the $1 million, but then you lose out over here. Or what good is $1 million a year, but you're running yourself thin and you're sick or you're tired or you're not having fun or whatever the case may be. You got the $1 million, but you had a sacrifice, right? So being able to give the statement, hey, this is for the best and highest good for all who are involved, right? And it also has to do with, again, making sure that, let's say you're in a business, right? Like, hey, I want to make $1 million. Okay, cool. And it also has to be good for the people I'm working with. I don't want this to come to me in a negative way. And here's why this is important. This actually, I'll also just say a family member of mine. This is a few years ago. She really, really wanted to go to Hawaii to go visit her mother. And she was like, really wanted to go, really wanted to go. It was like, $4,000 because she had a kid and, to stay somewhere, the whole thing is going to be pricey. And she just didn't have the money. And so she was really like focusing on it, like manifesting it. Right. And lo and behold, 2-3 weeks into this process of her like visualizing and all that, and this wasn't a client of mine. This is just again, a family member that told me this. And sure enough, a couple weeks in, she got rear-ended. And then when she ended up getting the check from the insurance company, the check was almost for like damn near the exact amount that she needed for her Hawaii trip, right? So she got what she wanted, but it wasn't with the best and highest good for all who are involved. She had to suffer, getting her car. So keep in mind, again, I like to use that as a blanket statement just to make sure, hey, everything's in alignment. Now, you could get even more specific. Again, making sure it's within your sweet spot. You could go as far as saying, hey, I want to make X amount and I want to work less than 30 hours a week. I want to be able to do this with 20 hours a week or less, right? Now, again, this needs to be within your sweet spot. So if you're not 8 or 9 out of 10, that the amount that you want to make with the effort that you're going to put in is there, then don't do that. Right. Like going into this year for my income goals and all that, I also set a time of how much work that I'm willing to put in. I'm willing to do more, but how much work I'm going to put in. Like I'm going to stop myself. Okay. Because I've been, working 70, 80 hours a week and that whole thing, right? Workhorse mentality. Now I actually want to accept the challenge of, okay, let me see if I can hit this. Let me see if I can hit this with actually doing less. That's my challenge now, right? Because at this point, it's like, yeah, more money's cool. That's fine. There comes a point where it's like, okay, let me see if I can do more with less. To me, that's more of a challenge, just making more money. Because I know if I put in 50, 60 hours a week, that the income that I want to hit, like that's a 10 out of 10. Let me see if I can do this with 30 hours, right? So now here's the thing. That is within my sweet spot. That doesn't mean for you to do that. Now, could I have done that last year? No, because over these past basically 2 years, I've been building my team and the foundation of my company and programs and courses and video and all this stuff that now I'm in a place. It's like building a house, right? I've built the house and now it's just time to maintain the house, right? And maybe I'll build a little casita in the back and all that, but everything's built, right? But while you're building the house, you're waking up early, you're working until the end and until the sun goes down, you're doing all these things. So again, keep that in mind if you want to do that. Now, if you want to work 50, 60 hours a week, then by all means, go ahead if that's where you're currently at. Again, I used to believe that I had to do that it was a requirement of me. And then I realized like, okay, if I gave what I found for myself is wasting a lot of time on tasks that weren't really moving the needle. Yeah, they could get done and everything, but it wasn't like a lever where like I pull it and I get a huge return on it. And what I realized is I was just working for the sake of working because I felt like I needed to, or I had to, or whatever. Right. So realizing that, you know what, I sat down and I mapped everything out. Okay, here's the top, 5 most important things that I've got to make sure that are done every single week. And I sat down and I wrote out those 5 things. And then I wrote, okay, how much time does this one take? 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 And then I realized, you know what, it's like 24 hours a week. If I hit all these things and I'm smart with my time, I can do it in 24. So let me give myself a little cushion. We'll say 30, right? Now, again, you may not be in a place yet where you feel like you can do that. That's within my sweet spot. Okay. So again, if you want to go beyond that and even put those extra parameters, okay, I highly recommend doing so. And again, as a blanket statement, just writing down, it's for the best and highest good for all who are involved. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is I'll do a little bit of Q&A and then we'll take a few minutes and I want you to just start the process. You may not have everything right now. Okay. And I really don't recommend you to rush anything. Like there's no need to rush. Sit down after today's call and really think about what this is and get very hyper specific on what those targets are for you. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, what I have been doing, I've never done this before. This is the first time I'm doing this. I know it's going to work. I'm just doing it because it's almost like, so I told you guys earlier, I'm going to write down 1,000 times my income goal for next year. And I have other goals that I'm doing. That's going to be the first one. Boom. And the reason I do that is just because once when money's good, then everything else trickles, right? The travel, the all that stuff ends up, you can do it. So I'm writing it down 1,000 times. I've never done it before. And I'm doing it because why not? Like, I know it can't hurt. It can't hurt at the end of the day. Right. And also it's like this weird belief within myself where I have this thing where I know that what we do, our company and myself and all the stuff we do, I know it works so much so to where I will manifest things to work because I want to be able, this is an ego thing. I want to be able to go, see, I knew it. I was right. What I do actually works. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's like, I'm doing this for the purpose of going, I wrote this down 1,000 times and it actually came true. So the fact that I am so set on it coming true is what's actually going to make it come true, right? Sometimes people would, now, by the way, let me give you a little warning on this. If you're going to do something like that and you're going to go into the mindset like, let me see, I'm going to do this for a week and see how it goes. Don't listen. I promise you, your hand is going to be sore. Okay. This might lead to long-term arthritis, carpal tunnel. I don't know. Okay. So just save yourself the hand ache. Okay. Because it really does